Okay, we are gonna look at a local mom's iPhone. She has two iPhones here for data recovery, and this one looks gross. So if I have to look at something gross, then you should have to look at something gross, don't you think? So this is the board for her iPhone 6, which she says is milk damaged. So of all the liquids, milk is one of the worst. We had to put the fume extractor on for 10 minutes after getting the shields off because the horrible smell of burning hot sour milk is disgusting. So I want to just sort of have you guys imagine how gross this must smell. Now let's take a look at this board. All right. Yummy. Don't you just want to lick it? This is gross. Oh God, that's like fibrous mold. Oh man, this is nasty, nasty, nasty. Surprised it doesn't turn on. What do you think, Jean?
That is nasty.
Yes, it is. Did your kids ever drop anything in milk? This is like fungus.
Dip the Oreos in milk instead, or the phone in milk?
Yeah, that's what we call it, Oreo phone. Oh, look at that fuzz.
That is really gross.
Yeah, nothing like starting your day off with a good close-up of hyphae.
How would you even do that?
I don't know, but I mean, I started this whole thing with my little girls helpfully dropping a phone in a toilet for me, so I can understand. So this is the shield that's hard to get off, so the milk has turned into chocolatey carbon. Yummy. Chocolate milk on this side. Gross. The good news, though, is when you're looking at this looks entirely disgusting, but if you look beyond the actual dried milk on the board, I don't see a whole lot of actual damage. So we'll see. This one will give the crust a run for its money. I don't see a lot of oxidation underneath all of this grossness. Ugh. Nasty. Nasty, nasty. I hope that YouTube gets a nice picture of something like this. Let's focus it up. You guys can't. You're not quite in focus. Rice would have definitely helped this phone, guys, says Zach. Yeah. I bet she did put it in rice. Rice really helps to ferment the growing yeast or whatever this is. Ew, nasty. All right, so now that we've had a good look, we do want to see where the worst of it is, which seems to be, for this one, everywhere. Everywhere is the worst. Nasty, nasty, nasty board. Look at that. Yummy. All right. Rice would fix this 100%, says Chris Long. Should we just put it in rice then and skip the ultrasonic cleaning? All right, so I'm gonna take this in the back and give it a nice bath, and we'll see what can the crust do. We'll see. This one will give it a run for its money. We'll put it on for like 6 or 7 minutes. All right, so let's see what's up with you guys while we're waiting. Yeah, a whole lot of yucks and moo juice. Yeah, milk is good. Milk in the summer is even worse when it gets shipped in a hot box for several days. Yes, it is. What sort of milk? Right now, fermented milk. Milk does an iPhone good. You sure it's not shit? Pretty sure. You took milk from liquid to burnt cheese. Yes, we made cheese. Will it blend? That'd be pretty good. Milk was one of the liquids which almost guaranteed Best Buy would replace your laptop under the accidental damage plan. That's a good tip. Pro tip. All right, let's see. A dehydrator. You would need rice milk since it has a better affinity for grain rice. It's science. Good thing I wasn't eating lunch right about now. Yes. Okay. All right. So we're going to look at her other phone while we're giving that one a bath. Ugh. Note to us, Jean, we need to change the ultrasonic, I think today.
Yeah.
Got to change the old ultrasonic after this one. All right, let's see what's up with this one. This is her second device. This is a 6S Plus, which I haven't opened yet, so I will open that up. Alrighty, got a bunch of highs from everybody on stream. Alrighty. Jean, do you listen to Sirius Radio?
Yes.
What's a good channel? The truck came with Sirius Radio.
I like lithium,
Lithium? What's that?
the alternative.
The alternative. Oh, do you have to wear like black and be a goth, or is that not a thing?
Alternative's like not goth.
Oh, it's not?
Plaid,
Oh, who knew?
flannel.
Flannel? Oh, okay.
What else? Highway.
I've been listening to the stand-up comedy ones, which are pretty funny, I guess. They're just like little clips.
Yeah.
Do you pay for it?
Yes, we are.
You do? Wow, Jean. Rockefellers.
We were going to drop it, but then I couldn't stand listening to local radio anymore.
You mean
so many
the
commercials.
B or whatever it is? The
Yeah, there's just so many commercials.
yes.
So like when you're going on a road trip, like when I was going to Baltimore, I'm like, I don't think I can make it down to Baltimore without.
Well, growing up, there was no choice but
Right.
radio. So the commercials were like, I think I still know. I still know the commercials for the local radio. Little jingles. Things that stay with you. All right, let's take a look at this board and see if we need to take it all the way out, which we definitely are going to have to do for water damage, but let's just take a look. All right, so this has some backlight. Backlight filter is blown away. Let's see how bad this one is. All right, not terribly bad. Maybe it's just a backlight. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be something? Alrighty. Happy-eyed also. Awesome. So you guys don't have to fast anymore, but that is a relief. We had some guys here at the last course that were fasting, which is tough when you're in a sort of mixed room with people that are eating lunch. I think that's pretty painful. I would think it would stink to have this holiday fall during the long days of summer. I think right now isn't it like the longest day of the year, like yesterday or a couple days ago, where it gets dark at 9:30 around here? That would stink. That would be tough. Pop goes the backlight. Yep. All right, so we're going to take out this board while we're waiting for the other one to get out of ultrasonic, and we will trade. This one will get a bath. Alrighty, I have an iPhone 5S that the screen stopped working, but when I put a new one, it works for like a week and then stops. You should post on a forum. iPhone questions, you should post on a forum so that you can get lots of people to give you their thoughts. Alrighty. We're gonna rip this sucker out. Get the antennas off. I really want to get a camera in here from over here so that you guys can not be bored when I'm doing stuff like taking apart a phone or taking a phone out of its housing, because that is kind of boring to sit around and watch. Longest day was the 20th, I think. Now they're getting shorter. Yes, winter is coming. Right here, Mark is on his way up to come hang out in Rochester.
You better pack us some
Yeah, he needs to pack us up a couple of boxes of heat. Told him to just grab a couple of handfuls of air and stick it in the van.
My
He
guess
showed,
is 61 on the way here.
yeah, it was 61 degrees Fahrenheit up here in beautiful, sunny, cold-ass Rochester. And Mark was, his car, the little thing that tells you the heat kind of gave up. It said 120 degrees, and I can't handle it. So he is ready to get to the land of cold. We are ready to get a little bit of summer heat, because it is not fun to try and take the kids tubing when it's 61 degrees. So Jean, your kids were out on the lake in May?
Yes, we were going first weekend of May.
Really? Were you the only ones out there?
The only ones tubing, yes.
Wow.
The first weekend. The water was damn cold.
Yeah. Hardcore. You don't mess around.
But now the tube is dead, so tubing days are over.
Yes. Well, how long is the tube going to be dead?
Until we get a new one.
All right. So let's look at the back of this. Brace yourselves. Winter is coming. Yes, it feels like winter never left, honestly. All right. A little bit of water back here on this 6S Plus. Not terrible. Little bit of green on the NAND caps. What the heck is that? Oh, pieces from her other phone. Great. All right, let's go ahead and get the shields off of this board. So I did see, people posting on forums this last couple days about, hey, I put an iPhone in an alcohol bath and now it's boot looping. So if you don't take the shields off, then you are not doing anything. So I thought about an analogy, the analogy that I came up with. What do you think about this, Jean? If you don't take the shields off of a water damaged board and you try to fix it by just putting it in an alcohol bath, drying it and seeing what happens, that's about the same as taking a baby that has a shitty diaper. Shit coming up through the top of the diaper, just shit storm everywhere. And you take the baby, you don't take off the diaper, just dunk the baby in a bathtub. And then take the baby out, leave the diaper on, and try to just kind of blow dry him so that he gets nice and dry.
Nice.
And then take the baby and dress him up in one of those really cute little Sunday best baby outfits that they have. And then the baby's still crying and your whole house smells like shit and you don't know why. That is about the same thing as taking an iPhone with water damage like this one and not bothering to desolder the shields. All right, so we will get this bottom shield off now, which is the hard one. Did anyone see where the heat index in Iran the other day was 160 degrees? That is a lot of degrees. That is a lot. It takes a lot more heat to get off this bottom shield. And with the 6S and the 6S Plus, you have to be really careful not to get a big slide of all the components. I've seen that a few times. So I'm holding it very close to the table with tweezers under the shield and using full heat, full air to get the shield off. And I'm trying to minimize the distance that this board has to drop. All right, let's see if I got that shield off without a big slide. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at this one now. All right, now that the shield is off, did I get a big slide under here? No. And I'm glad that I took the shield off because I can see corrosion. So this is the kind of thing that had that shield stayed on, I wouldn't expect for there to be any change in this corrosion here with ultrasonic with a shield on. It can't do anything. It just can't get under the shields at all. It is a baby with a shitty diaper sitting in a bathtub. I hear a customer phone with an alarm. Great.
It's not very loud though, is it?
I know, it can hardly wake them up, especially since they're in another state. All right, so the major damage here really looks to be kind of just around backlight, which is great. Great news, at least in theory. All right, let's keep looking. I think I'm gonna have to use my fancy cat hair lint remover on my desk to be able to continue operating on this stuff. All right, let's look under this side. There's some corrosion around these dudes. Chunk of something there. We've got our NAND cap area corrosion. Everything looks good down on that bottom side. All right, so let's switch. Analogy was fine, just make it a pool, not a bathtub. Ooh, I like that even better. Except, why would you try to clean your baby's shit in a pool? That's a whole nother level of redneck right there. All right, let's drop this one in and switch. Alright, let's see how we did. And I am going to get my station clean again with a good old dried milk remover from the dollar store. Love this thing. Picking up all sorts of TriStar and Mason chips littered everywhere. Beautiful. And I'm going to grab a paper towel. Actually, I'll just use this. We'll get a little alcohol on here, just so that I don't have to throw up. Cool pants, Jessa. Yes, these are my pajamas. I'm glad you like them. They are, I think, Zumba pants. Love Zumba. Jean, when are we going to go to some Zumba classes? What's going on? What's down at the lake? Can we do any Zumba down at the lake? What about Geneseo?
I don't know. There's gotta be something.
Yeah, we gotta do something in Geneseo. Oh, here's another thing I want to do, Jean. I want to like figure out. I've been into swimming at the gym lately since I hurt my back. I want to like measure out like a known distance, like 50 yards or something like that, and like put some buoys out. Yeah, so that we can have like, you know, so we can get our fitness on.
Lake swimming is a lot different than pool swimming.
It is? Why?
The current.
Oh, the current, yeah. Is there like a current out there? I mean, it's really, really close to shore.
Yeah,
Have you been swimming
no.
close to the dock?
Here's a common one.
Have you been in the lake at all?
No, it's too cold.
Wow. It is cool. I haven't either. This is how Jeff met the neighbors. So he goes out. This is what he just says. He's like, I'm going to take a shower and go to work. And then he's like, well, I'm not going to take a shower. I'm going to go take a lake bath, which is disgusting.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah, it's totally disgusting. So he wades out into the lake And we've not said anything to any of these neighbors, and he starts just like dumping water over his head and doing this. I'm like, Jeff, stop like redneck bathing in the lake, and the neighbors are like, hi. So that's how he met the neighbors on the one side. The neighbors on the other side, he met when he learned the hard way that he was hanging up one of these swinging chairs, and they already had these hooks for like a kayak, or a bike, the garage hook. So he hung the chair. He was like, oh, I'll just use that hook rather than put in the one that comes with the chair. So he hangs the chair in it, and then he sits in it, and that hook turns into just a straight. And the neighbor's like, oh, buddy, are you okay? He's like, I'm fine. All right.
So you met both sides.
Yes. All right. Yeah. So now we know all the neighbors. All right. We met the neighbors of the house that's right next to us yesterday. They are a family with a little baby and then like a 3-year-old girl. Okay, so this is the milk phone. Let's see, how did the Crest do? Looking so much better. Good job, Crest. Great job. Look at that. I don't even think I could make yogurt on this anymore. Look at that. Beautiful. What do you guys think? Beautiful job, Crest. You rock. Look at that. See, this is what I meant about the actual amount of corrosive damage is very, very minor. Let's get this piece of melted sticker off of here. So after I put this in the ultrasonic, then I put it in in the alcohol and used a relatively stiff brush. I'm a fan of vigorously brushing so that if a component is just held on by spit, I want it to come off so that I can see it and know that it was in need of attention. All right, so we'll get some of this off. But this looks pretty good. Pretty good. Maybe it's not going to have anything wrong with it. We'll see. This one we could get lucky on. A little bit of damage right there at that pin, but even that seems to be coming off pretty readily. All right, let's keep looking around. Let's flip it and look around. Speaker amp, vibrator motor. Looking good on this board. Looks really good. Nice and fresh. That's what you want your baby's ass to look like. Nice and fresh. All right, what do you guys think? Ban the boobies? Okay, what is going on here in chat? Hello guys, I'm so alone today. If you want to know me, find me here. Wow. I will do that. All right, that sounds good. You mean you don't follow the example of the mall kiosks and scrub the boards with alcohol without removing them from the case? No, I don't do that. I don't do that at all. That looks very good. The swinging chairs, the leather ones with the straps that you find in certain dungeons. Yes, the ones that have to have a lot of pictures on the box of like beach balls and sun, so that you don't think, oh, this is a fuck swing. Yes. Those exact ones. All right, how do we ban all of these people that need fuck dates? Cancer is strong in this stream. Yes. All right. The fuckbots have arrived. Yes. Wow. I think that we should, is buoy the U.S. pronunciation of buoy? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right. I'm going to send you some better alcohol dispensers. Oh, I love these things. She isn't going to fix this phone. I would be able to fix it, but not her. Oh, really? Because I don't think this phone has anything wrong with it. So I'm not sure that this one would be a really great one to brag about your phone fixing skills. But what do I know? All right, let's see what happens with this if we grab some known good parts. So this is important to try to boot it not with the native battery. So we've learned that. We've learned that a few times on this stream, that the native battery, a water damaged battery, can and will corrupt the data on the phone, which is not good. All right, so we'll see. Actually, I'm going to grab the other green box. The other green bucket. All right, so Lewis, I noticed, has been coming around and commenting on my stream late at night, as me, doing a whole lot of call me posts. And then I noticed last night that everybody went through my whole channel, and everybody that was asking about schematics, he posted a link to a number and said, call this number and ask for schematics. And I had no idea what the hell that number was or what he was doing. So I called it, and guess what the message was at the other end of the phone on Lewis's call this number if you need schematics. Hello, this is Wild PCS. So I'm gonna have to go delete those. All right, let's see. Let's go ahead and we'll try to boot it with a DC power supply. Alrighty. Which lens do you use in the microscope? I mean the size. This size. This is a 45x microscope, and you can look in the video description for a link to the microscope that we recommend. All right, so let's find the iPhone 6 battery cable and plug it in, and now we are going to boot and see what happens. The battery problem has to be a buffer overflow, possible way into the locked device. All right, so we are trying to boot this off of DC power supply, and DC power supply is showing a relatively normal boot signature, at least for right now, and we'll see if it will boot all the way up. And it's getting brighter. That looks good. Well, another person needs a fuck date. Guys, can't you just kind of hook up all these people that need to get a deep dickin'? Help them out. All right, let's see if we have touch. Yay, we have touch. All right, so there you go. This one is solved by the crest. So we will move this over to ready to recover. Let's look at that board again, and you can see that good quality ultrasonic machine can sometimes just resurrect a board. So getting a crest or a similar sweep frequency heated ultrasonic cleaner is a great way to make some money on data recovery. All right, so let's look at this board again, and it really doesn't show really any sign. Well, maybe up here. Maybe up here. We can clean that a little bit better. But as far as corrosion, actual oxidation, damage, actual damage, there's none of that. There's just a little bit of places where I probably should have scrubbed it a little bit better. But if you look under all these chips, there's really nothing that jumps out at you. It was just a flesh wound. This one might need a second go round through the crest to be really totally clean. But there's really nothing for us to fix here. That one is as if it never saw water for the most part. So there you go. All right, we are going to grab the other one at the other one out of the ultrasonic and put this one back with its pieces. Man, look at this though. Look at the native housing on this. For those of you guys that joined late, this is what this board looked like. This is the housing. Gross. Gross. Yep. Everywhere. So we're gonna throw that housing away. That is too nasty. There you go. I'll just leave this on here for you while I go grab the other one out of the ultrasonic in case anybody's eating lunch. All right, here's board number 2. All right, so I'm going to move this one out of here and put it in ready to recover. Ready to recover. Let me move this over here. Milk damage is the worst looking, I guess. All right. I bet Lewis is jealous. He never gets boobs in his chat. Probably so. All right, let's take a look at this board now. So out of the ultrasonic, how did we do? Whoa, that is Paul Plays donated $20. Hello, guys. I'm so alive. If you want to know, find me on something. Just kidding. Thanks for these streams. I always learn something at being employers. Bring employees to your course soon. Well, thanks for that, Paul. We'll look forward to seeing you guys at the course. All right, so let's do that. All right, let's pull this stuff off a little bit so that we can see. And this one has that pretty obvious damage to the backlight area right here. And then we'll go on a hunt and see what else is wrong. So before we put power into this board, we're going to try to solve as many problems as we can so that we don't throw current into a short, for example, if we can. All right, so all that looks good. Down here, this cleaned up. See that? Under the shield looks good. Let's look here at the dock. Get this sticker off. All of that looks great. Flip it. Under here always looked good. And now we've got these caps here. Now those look really, really bad. So we're going to test to see whether or not that line is short just based on physical damage. Can she read? No. No, of course not. Reading is not required. All right. The one time I wake up and she's live. Hi from New Zealand. Yes. No, she can't, but she does have a PhD. Yes, was able to get a PhD without being able to read. One of my skills. All right, so these ones I don't think we can even get a reading on. Let's see. All right, so despite the fact that those look bad, this diode mode reading is 0.430, which seems pretty close to normal. But those look way too suspect, so I'm going to kick them off the board just because I don't want them to turn into a wire and drop the NAND power to ground. So let's get rid of those dudes. Let's get rid of these dudes. Too ugly. Too ugly. You are not likely to continue to function, even if you function right now. All right, let's go back. Especially when you have a board that has, you know, fairly specific focal damage, then there's no reason to kind of keep things on the board that are going to potentially cause a problem. All right, so we had some corrosion around these guys as well, which I feel like those are going to be one of the CPU or GPU power lines. I could be wrong about that, but let's check. So I would be expecting low resistance to ground. Yeah, so 0.05 I think is probably normal, so I'm going to leave those ones alone. All right, so let's go back and check on backlight. We don't really need backlight to work for data, but with a board that's a local customer that has fairly focal damage, then we might as well try to get her the best result possible. All right, let's check out these particularly ugly looking caps in diode mode. Yep, that one says hells no. Let's see this one. Can we even get a reading? Can we get a little bit of metal to connect to get a reading on that sucker? Let's see. Let's see. Let's try to make it so that we're looking at the same thing in the same focus. There we go. One red probe on ground. Can we get a reading on this guy? Says OL. But again, just on the basis of physical appearance. There we go. I'm going to kick him off. Okay. Now let's look around here and see what we have. I see some resistors, and resistors in general, there's one right here, and there's one right there, and there's one right there, and there's something that looks like either probably a missing component that's knocked off there. Let's go ahead and look up what those guys do and see whether or not they would be likely to interfere with our ability to boot this board before we even try. And we're also missing a dude right there. So let's check into that. I'm actually going to get a little bit of low heat and get this board a little bit cleaned up so that we can actually see what's going on in here. So I'm going to go low heat and find my nozzle and clear that out a bit. I want to know how much they're making over there on the fuckbots. That's got to be a lucrative business to be worth all that. Backlight filter has left the building. Take a peek under here. All right, that's good. Now let's check out that area and see what do we need to fix before we bother to attempt to boot? So let's look this stuff up. All right, so we'll leave this right here. Lucrative, but lonely, apparently. Yes. First time I don't get a Wix commercial, but now an Oberlo. What the heck is that? All right, so now we're gonna go hit up our buddies in China with their ZXW tool and see what we can figure out about who these missing dudes are. So I'm loading ZXW for the first time today. And we're gonna go on a hunt to see who are we missing. Alrighty, let's flip this board around so that it matches the ZXW orientation just to make it easier on everybody. And let's start with who is missing dude right there. So let's ask ZXW, tell us, who is that missing dude? Answer is, it is a filter for PP3V0 Mesa connector. So Mesa, 3V0 Mesa. So then we have to ask ourselves, what would be the effect of having that filter missing? Well, we know for sure that a filter is an inline drawbridge, and if it's missing, we're not going to be able to deliver 3 volts of Mesa power to the home button connector. So what is that likely to do? We can go and look on the schematic and figure out what does Mesa do. So for you guys that are not automatically familiar with Mesa, let's do that. Let's go ahead and take a look. So I'm gonna dig up the 6S Plus schematic, which I did not get by calling Wild PCS, believe it or not. I found it on the internet, as you should too. I wonder if the Chinese have a way to grab data off iPhones without booting the device. They do not. No one in the world, no one in the whole wide world can get encrypted data off of an iPhone, decrypt it, and have it be usable without fixing the iPhone, so that you can access data natively and it will decrypt itself. 6S Plus schematic. All these poor lonely people feel bad. All right. So let's see if we can find our component here. So let's go back over to screen. All right, so ZXW said we are looking for FL4100, just to know a little bit more about that line. So we will ask the schematic. What does FL4100 do? FL4100, show yourself. And everywhere I stick the chat is where we need to look. FL4100, so it's an inline filter. And let's see what this line does. Mesa power. So the line here is PP3V0 Mesa. So let's understand, what does PP3V0 Mesa do? Let's ask. Show me more about PP3V0 Mesa. All right, it goes to the Orb and Mesa connector. What is Orb? I don't know. And if you look around here and see what's going on, I see button menu key, okay, home button connector. So let's see what else it does. This is telling us that 3V0 Mesa is a line out of the U2000 chip, which is one of the power management chip lines. So what else? What else? All right, that's pretty much it. So 3V0 Mesa comes from the power management chip. It goes through this filter, and it goes to the connector. All right, so we can guess, all right, what would be the consequence then of not having 3V0 Mesa? So let's look and see what all this Mesa stuff is. I don't see Mesa, the word Mesa is nowhere else in the schematic other than here at the home button connector. And so we see all of this stuff talking about Mamba on this side and Mesa, Mesa, Mesa Boost, Mesa, Mesa, Mesa over here. And if you kind of thought long enough, what what the heck is Mesa? You know, I don't see it anywhere else in the entire schematic. However, it is going to the connector for the home button. So if you had to take a guess, you could guess what else does the home button connector plug into, and you could probably come up with fingerprint sensor. So Mesa is the fingerprint sensor chip. So we're going to ignore that for data recovery. So let's look and see what else is going on this board. So let's look back at the board. So now we know we are missing a dude that delivers fingerprint sensor power to the connector, so we're going to likely not have that. We're missing these two caps, which are not likely a big deal, but we really want to know more about these two guys here, one of which might be no stuff, but this resistor, that resistor, and this resistor. So those are the guys that we want to learn about next. So let's go back to ZXW and ask, who are those guys? All right, so we are missing R4130, or he's there, but really damaged looking. PP1V8 touch. And this line, I2C, or I2C, if you're a purist, which I'm not, touch to Mamba proximity data line. All right, and the caps here are on 3V0 Mesa, which we're going to give up on 3V0. We're going to give up on 3V0 Mesa. This one is on that PP1V8 touch to Mamba. So PP1V8 touch to Mamba. And then we've got this guy here, PP1V8 touch. All right, so these guys then, we have to ask ourselves, are these going to be important for data recovery? So touch is something that's important for data recovery. So we might have to address this area. For now, we're going to kind of just keep that in mind. I don't want to solve a touch problem if this phone's never going to boot. So if this phone has corrupted software or something that prevents it from ever booting, then it would be a waste of time for me to go solve a touch issue. And the same is true for backlight. So I want to see first, can I get this phone to boot? And then if so, then I'll work on backlight and then touch. Is that board coated with some black resin? Like they all are, yes, they're coated with a waterproof silicone coating. All right, so now it's time to go ahead and ask, can this board boot? So can it boot into the operating system? And if so, then we can see if we feel like solving backlight. It's not going to have backlight, or it may have half-dim backlight. All right, so let's grab the test parts for 6S Plus. So we're going to go with known good again. All right, so since we're not expecting backlight, we're going to have to use a screen that doesn't require backlight because we want to know if it can boot and produce an image. So I'll hook up a known good dock. Let's see. So I'm just going to split the backlight off of this test screen so that I can look for image without worrying about backlight. That way I'll be able to see it. Oh, I had a lot of caffeine today. That was probably dumb. Feeling shaky and jittery, which means I'll have to use hot air instead of tweezers today for a while. All right. Clicking report made it disappear for me, but probably not for anyone else. Yep. Yep, hitting report spam is good. It helps for Google to get that shit, not just off of this stream, but all the other streams that those usernames are polluting right now. All right, so I'm going to try to boot with DC power supply. And we will first say, can it actually hold power and boot? So connecting the DC power supply, I can see that there's a little bit of a leak. I have 0.04 amps going through this phone before prompting it to boot. So that's not good. That tells us there's a problem somewhere. But we will see whether or not that small leak is a big deal or not by asking it to boot. All right, so I'm prompting it to boot, and I don't see an image on the screen, but I'm watching the DC power supply, and it seems to be moving normally-ish. So that's a chance that this is actually booting, but I don't see anything. I don't see any image, and of course I don't see any backlight. So I'm going to connect it to the computer to ask if it's actually booting. Does iTunes recognize this device in normal mode? The other option is that it's booting into recovery mode, which doesn't produce an image. So let's see. Connect. I hear that connect sound, and I'm going to look over here and see, is iTunes recognizing the device as normal or in recovery mode? So let's wait for iTunes to recognize it. So it sees the phone in normal mode. So it's wanting me to type in the passcode right now. So that's good. So we have solved problem number 1, which is, can this phone boot? And it can boot. So now we have to go after, can we get it to have image and touch? All right, so I think before I go crazy on troubleshooting image, I just want to test with a second screen here just to make sure that my known good screen hasn't just decided to become a known bad screen. So we'll do the same exact thing with a different screen just to rule that out. Because our screens get a lot of road hard, put away wet. So I'm going to try a separate known good screen just to make sure that I don't have image and that this is not just a, hey, that screen can't make an image. All right, so now that we know that the phone can boot, we can have the option to stop using DC power supply, since phones don't really like DC power supply. It's a diagnostic tool. So let's see if it can boot using this battery. Battery provides all of that juicy information that phones love from the battery. All right, and with this screen, I'm getting that half dim backlight because we know we've got one of our backlights down, and I am seeing an image, so that's good. And let's see whether or not we have touch. Ooh, temperature. It doesn't like that. Temperature warning. Well, temperature warning can come in 2 flavors: fake temperature warning and real temperature warning. So a fake temperature warning means that the device is fake temperature warning means that the device is being told that it's too hot, but it's not actually too hot. Real temperature warning is the device is actually hot, which may be the case here because we know we've got that little bit of a leak current. So I'm going to go back to DC power supply and see if this phone is actually running hot or not. All right, so we'll go back to DC power supply. One of the common culprits in temperature warnings, the fake style, is just the battery itself. So we'll see what happens when we prompt to boot off of DC power supply and not this battery. Oh, it doesn't like that. Let's see. All right, so we'll see if we get a temperature warning again. Uh-oh, I lost my image. All right, we'll let it boot down here. So I'm going to put my hand on the board to see if it feels like it's actually getting hot. And it is losing image down here. So let's see. Let's see if it can boot all the way. Nope, it is not liking that. It's getting hot. All right, so let's go back and look at the board, and let's try to kind of solve the physical damage problems so that we can give it a chance to boot. All right. Probably somebody dumped in the cereals. This board is not the milk board. This board is the second one. The milk board is already ready to recover. So this is her second board. Same lady, second board. All right, so let's see. Well, that piece of the connector's gonna come off. All right, so heat means short to ground. Things like a resistor are not gonna cause a short to ground. All right, so I don't like the way this backlight cap looks. So we're gonna test to see if we actually have a short to ground on this backlight line. Let's see. Now this one might be hard to test because usually when you have damage like that in this area, the trace is gone from underneath here, so that probably doesn't connect to anything. All right, let's go check instead on these big backlight caps. All right, so that's 0.5. Ooh. So I'm checking here, and I have a short to ground. So that is backlight, which, just following the path of the damage, we can see this is serious damage to the backlight circuit, which you don't need backlight for data recovery, but that damage there looks like it has caused a short to ground on that line. And I'm testing that line over here at a good looking cap. So let's kind of make that make sense so that you can follow that. Let's show you guys on ZXW what's up with that line. All right, let's get rid of iTunes for now, and let's go back over here. All right, so the guy that's really blown off the board where the major damage is this. This is the backlight anode filter, and it connects the backlight anode line to the connector. So this is the filter, and then this little cap then is also on that backlight anode line. And we can look to see let's go to the schematic. Let's just take the number. So let's look at FL4291 on the schematic. FL4291. FL4291. All right, so that's the missing filter, and then here's the little cap. So if this cap had decided to become a wire, that would make the entire backlight line then short to ground. And let's see where else this line goes. So we'll follow this PPLCM BL34 line. So we'll hit copy, paste, hit next. All right, so this is just at the connector. That's where we've been before. Test point. And then we get back here. All right, so this line comes from the backlight driver area. So the backlight driver area, backlight driver chip. We have VCC main coming into the chip. We have the big coil and the little coil. We have the regular diode and the glass diode. And then we've got these caps here. So the one that I was testing is C4053, which is this big cap. So C4053 is on that same backlight anode line. So C4053 is this one that I picked just to kind of be a tell. C4053. So this is short to ground. C4053 is short to ground, which means that this line is short to ground. So how could it be short to ground? I could have it be short to ground because C4053 feels like being a wire. Or it could be because C4052 feels like being a wire. Or it could be because the chip feels like being a wire. But it could not be because the coil feels like being a wire. It's already a wire. It has no path to ground. Diodes have no path to ground. It can't be over here because VCC main is not short to ground, or else the phone wouldn't be able to boot, and we just saw it boot. All right, so that gives me a short list. I have the driver. I have one or this cap or the other cap, or if we follow the line back out, the filter itself is gone, which breaks the line there, so that on this side, even though C4291 looks really horrible, that is unlikely to be the cause of the short to ground, because we're measuring the short to ground on the left side. That filter is gone, so that drawbridge is gone. So even though C4291 may be short to ground and it looks really bad, let's look at it again. That is not going to be the reason why this line is short to ground. So there's our really ugly looking little cap there. So let's go ahead and kick him off, just because he's too ugly to be on the board. We're gonna pluck him off. All right, so either we have a short to ground that's internal to the board there at that spot, which is a possibility because the damage just looks really rough, or it's gonna be the big cap out here or the little cap. So let's just confirm that we didn't just clear the short by digging that out. Nope, so that's still short. All right, so what should we do? Let's hear what you guys think we should do. How should we solve this backlight anode line short? What do you think is the cause of the short? So I'm gonna read this chat a little bit. 3 dislikes are from Lewis. No, only Sharky dislikes my stuff. All right, the smooth brain butt test. The client goes through iPhones like water under the bridge. He's on his 5th iPhone in 3 years. All right. Sit on your phone? What? I wish I was smart enough to repair my own phone. Well, watch a lot of YouTube. Love that yellowish stuff that's kept in refrigerators and fed to infants. Colostrum, is that what you're talking about? Yummy. Breast milk is the best milk. Are you sure it's milk? Yes. So we're on our second board. So the milk phone's fixed. I'll have to go back to the beginning of the stream to see that. All right. A lactating mother fell asleep with it on her chest. That's not how breastfeeding works. Wow. It's not like a fountain. It's not like a water fountain. So it doesn't come out like that. Yeah, just like, it's not a hose. All right. Okay. Do you have any support from Apple? No. Or do you have to find out and use all your parts and board layouts yourself? I have to find things that fell off a truck in China, and I have to do a lot of experimenting, but no help from Apple. Although they do give us a lot of referrals, so I gotta say that. All right. Jessa was asking, what's the Mesa? So Black Mesa from Half-Life. Uh-oh, what's going on up front? All right. Okay, let's see. Did you guys figure out what we should do? The title of the video should be "That's Not How Breastfeeding Works." I like that. I like the idea of going back and retitling videos using some stream comment, because I think that is pretty funny. Otherwise, these titles get really repetitive, and you can't really predict in advance. Like the milk phone was gross, but it was just needed a bath. That was it. All right. iPhone 6 Plus, he has developed overheating issues, and the battery goes to 50%, so change the battery. All right. Jessa, if I have a board without hitting when I put him in power supply, how can I diagnose board like this? How can I know what is the problem? If I have a board without hitting, I don't know what that means. Without heating. If I have a board without heating when I put him in power supply, then that's a bigger... Lewis, Sharky, and Fixin' Mom. That's a bigger problem than we can answer. All right. Okay. So what do you guys? So nobody says, nobody's got a vote. All right. My vote is C4023, the big cap. Let's kick him off. What do you say? I think we should kick off the big cap. This dude. Let's get him out of here. Now this one may be a little big for my X-Acto crack-off method, but let's see. Nope, got him. All right, now let's ask him, are you a wire? If it's not him, then I'm gonna guess that it is actually internal to the board right there at the backlight spot. All right, so let's ask him. Bro, are you a wire? Let's get you over here where you're not touching anybody else and ask him if he's a wire. Nope, he's not a wire. God damn it. Which means we still have a short. All right. So that means that either, let's look, the backlight driver area could be the culprit underneath the backlight driver chip. However, it doesn't look like there was ever any water there. So I'm going to go with the reason why this line is short is right here in the spot. So let's see if we can kind of tease that out a little bit and see if we have anything that, if the line is touching ground in there in a way that we can get it to stop touching ground. So we're going to kind of dig in here a little bit. Yeah, that seems pretty fried. All right, so I'm going to guess that the actual trace in the board is touching ground here in this area. So let's see what we can do to get it to stop doing that. So I'm going to use my favorite green tweezers here and just try and get the trace separated from anything else.
I thought it was admitted to you. Oh, yeah. I thought it said it changed it from what's just admitted to number 2.
That's really burned in there, damn. Deep.
So I can't come here with a computer. I need to get, can you log in and get into the busy list phone?
That's really burned up in there. So all we're doing is we're trying to figure out if backlight anode line is touching ground in this burned out hole. And if so, can we get it to stop? All right, let's see if that helped at all. So we'll go back over here and say, do we still have a short? All right, so we'll do red probe on ground. Do we still have a short? Yep. All right, so that may be more, I would like to kind of fix this phone for this mom if possible, because the damage kind of seems minor and she's got 2 here for data recovery. But I don't want to worry too much about this backlight short when I've got another way to get the data. So let's see. Let's spend like another minute on this. I'm going to try to peel this up where that cap was sitting. We don't really need that at all. All right, let's see if that did anything, and if not, then we'll go to plan B. Still short. Okay, so plan A was, let's see if we can resolve the backlight short so that we could then repair backlight if we wanted to get this phone to still have a backlight. But we don't really need backlight to get her data off. And what she really cares about is the baby pictures. So we've got this overheating problem that's probably because there is a short on the backlight line. So what can we do? We can try to just sort of isolate that short within the board. So let's look back at that line. So let's go over here to screen. So the line that's short is the backlight anode line. So let's get rid of this, and let's find that backlight anode line. So this is the line that's short, backlight anode line. So we're gonna pick it and follow it. So copy, and oh, it's still there. So from the connector through the filter to grandmother's house we go. And by grandmother's house, I mean backlight driver. All right, so then we get out here to this backlight driver. We already took off C4053 just because that's a common fault, even though that capped looked fine. We still have C4052 as the reason potentially why there's a short to ground, but the evidence really points to there being an internal short to the board itself because it's so deeply burned in that area. All right, we've exonerated the diodes and the coils. That can't possibly be the cause. And then we've got the chip itself. So one thing that we could do is we could just say, all right, how do we not put current on the backlight anode line? So if we didn't have any current on this line, we would not have a short to ground. So we could do that by just deleting the things that supply that line. If we just simply take off the diodes here or take off the coils, then we would be breaking that line and we would no longer have a short to ground on it. So let's go for the diodes. It's possible that the short is coming from within the chip or this cap, but I think more likely it is out there. So I'm trying to think about whether or not we need to take this chip off itself. So VCC main is going to come in, and this is going to switch here ahead of the diode. So if we get rid of both diodes, then I think that this is what I'm not sure about. This output here, I think is pretty likely that it's just kind of a feedback going into the chip. Yeah, so we'll try that. Let's go ahead and take off the two diodes and see whether or not that solves the problem. So we're going to go after D4051 and D4050. So let's ask the XW. iPad rehab, do data recovery, don't fuck with it. Well, we can't do data recovery if we have a phone that won't boot. Right now it will not boot because of the temperature warning, and our guess is the reason why it has a temperature warning is because of the short to ground. All right, so let's do that. Okay, so D4051, let's see where that is. D4051. All right, so on the back of this board, D4051 and D4050 are the two little diodes that are near this driver that's closest to the edge of the board. So let's see where they are on our board. So let's go flip this sucker over, and our diodes are right here. That guy and this guy. So we'll go ahead and get the bracket out of the way so we can have access to those dudes. All right. Somebody named Javier is asking, did you get my number? You are talking to Louis Rossman, so if you want him to call you, then keep posting. He's the guy that puts call me, call me, call me all over my comment stream. Alrighty. Let's move that off with some tweezers. This is gonna blow up. This thing gonna blow up. Not a fan of blowing up data boards. We're gonna get some baby pictures. All right, let's get this out of the way. All right, let's peel that up a little bit. My janky tweezers to the rescue. Just a little bit. we go. Okay, let's go ahead and get these dudes off. Yucky. Little kid booger. All right. So we're going to put heat on the boards. We need to look around. Is anybody going to be bothered by underfill? And it doesn't really look like it. So we'll go ahead and use heat to get these suckers off. Would it be easier to solder a wire to avoid the bad spot on the board? That doesn't make sense. How can we eliminate a short to ground by soldering a wire somewhere? That doesn't make sense to me. Explain that to me. I don't think we'll be able to isolate a short by adding a wire. We need to delete a wire. Jessa, do you have a book of how I can learn about troubleshooting of iPhones and what to do when I have a problem and how to solve the problems? Nope, but we do have a course that you can come to where we teach you exactly that. Alright, so we are going to take off these diodes. Alright. Alright, so now let's just kind of ask the question of whether or not, what's up with our short now? I'll wake up the multimeter. Alright, so now we've got the short on one side of the diode, but not the other. So let's look at ZXW and see what side of the short it's on. What side of the diode. So let's go, whoops, over to here. And so this side is the chip side. And this side is the line side. So that's kind of, so let's, I forgot already which side our short was on. The chip side is the big pad, and the line side is the little pad. So let's see which side is short. I already forgot. Let's see. So we can now figure out what side and narrow down on the short. All right, so that is the chip side, and this is the line side. Chip side, line side. So let's go back here. Screen. No, not screen. Yeah, screen, right? So our short is out here, which does make sense. So we have the, you know, in here, these are the pads that actually, the chip that switches the VCC main line to ground to generate that backlight voltage. And then we have out here, this is our line side. So other than what I'm hoping is a feedback back into the chip, we have now isolated, we've cut off, we've isolated this short, at least in theory, from the main board. So we're hoping, we may have to come take this chip itself off. In fact, I think I will do that just to make this short and not have any variables, since this is not going to have backlight anyway. Let's go ahead and take that chip off as well, just so that we are sure that we've really isolated our short to the board and that we're not going to be putting any current into it. So this probably isn't necessary because I think that the line is just coming back to the chip, but we'll do it anyway. All right, so I'm going to stick a quarter up here on NAND, and we'll just take that driver chip off. And this will also help us see whether or not the short was within the driver, which is a possibility. If it is, then we would still have a shot at rebuilding backlight if we wanted to do that. All right, so now let's go back and make sure. All right, so now we definitely have the chip, or the line side only is short. So we've got a short here on that backlight anode line leaving the diode. And let's go back and see what that looks like on the schematic and on ZXW. So here our short is on this side, but not on that side. All right, so then on the top side of the board, that line goes out past the C4023 cap, and it arrives here at the area where probably the short is located, internal to the board, in this big old ugly looking mess that we were not able to just sort of dig gently and clear that short. So our plan now is to say, fuck that short. You can stay there and you can be short all you want, but if you're not getting any juice, then who cares? So let's look at the schematic so that we can understand why that is. So what we've done is we've taken off D4051 is gone, and so is D4050. That's also gone, and so is the chip. So we have severed this drawbridge, snip, snip, snip. And therefore, even though this line is still short to ground, it's not connected to anything anymore. So now it's just a wire connected to ground, so who cares? It's never going to actually receive any voltage, so therefore it's not going to pass any current and therefore not cause us a problem. So that's our plan. Let's see if that makes a difference. So now we're going to see if we can no longer get our temperature warning that was our problem on here. Alrighty, so we will go back and try to boot with DC power supply, and we will use this screen. And see if we can get rid of that temperature warning. So we'll go back to the battery, because now we're hoping that the temperature warning, which can sometimes be just bad battery, we'll go back to the battery thinking that the temperature warning we were getting was actually because of the short in the board, which is now snipped off on both ends, so it's just existing as a wire in the board. All right, so now let's see if we have an image. I think I am going to stick with DC power supply just so that I know that it's booting and I don't have any problems like, hey, that battery's not charged. All right, so I'm going to connect it to DC power supply, and I'm going to prompt it to boot. Prompt it to boot. Okay, so now let's see if we can get it to boot. So of course it's got the half-dim backlight because we have nothing on one of our backlight lines, but the other backlight line is intact. So let's see if we can get this to boot without getting a temperature warning, in which case, yes, a backlight vasectomy. I love that. All right, let's see if we have touch. We do have touch, and let's see if we have her passcode. Where is her paperwork? Which one is it? That is a different dude. All right, where is local chip's paperwork? Okay, I'm gonna try to boot it now on battery to make sure that we don't have any problems and that we could actually recover it while I look for her passcode. All right, let's see. Backlight vasectomy. That might be an even better title. All right. Where is that one's paperwork? Where is the paperwork? I'm gonna just look it up in Repair Shopper. Love, love, love Repair Shopper. All right. Ticket number. All right, let's boot. I can see the passcode in the ticket. Stop wigging out. No, don't lose image, you piece of shit. Let's try to get a path to data. If my stuff can stop falling, I think we can do it. All right, I'm going to write down that passcode. All right, we're in trust. All right, let's see. Yep, lots and lots of pictures, all the kid pictures. There we go. So we have lots and lots of the cute, cute baby pictures. Somebody's been using the cat app.
A good wholesome recovery.
A good wholesome recovery, yes. A good wholesome recovery. You know, who doesn't want that back? Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yes. Unlike the last one. Yes. Did that one go back? Did we even?
We burned it.
We did. We burned the drive and then we had to burn the computer.
No, we literally said.
All right, perfect. All right, there we go. Yes, cute little dude coloring in the driveway with the chalk. That is perfect. Okay, so that's going to be what we're doing for this phone. So we have both of these recovered. So all this mom's getting back all of those baby pictures. And I think this one was an interesting one because of the temperature warning. So the temperature warning, the board was getting hot, and then we figured out that there was a short on a backlight anode line. We don't really need that line for data recovery, but we can't have that line being short and getting hot and preventing us from being able to have a path to data because of the temperature warning. So what we did was we snipped that line off by removing components that were in line to isolate. That short still exists. This board has an anode line short, and the likely cause of the short is because of all of that burn that happened right there at the backlight filter area, that the explosion, the heat from that original damage caused a fusion in the board of the trace carrying that 20-volt backlight line with ground that's nearby. So we briefly tried to tease apart that line from ground, but it's likely just really welded together in the board there. So we wouldn't be able to safely disconnect that short and repair that line natively to get it to not be short. So with this one, the safest path to get this mom her baby pictures was to just isolate that short and let it just sit there in the board. If it doesn't ever receive any current, then it's just another ground plane, and so it doesn't really matter. All right, let's see if we have anything to respond to in the comments, and then we're going to be done. All right, let's see. Which diode was that? We took off both diodes. We took off both diodes and the chip just to completely sever all connections of that line to the rest of the board. All right. All right, backlight vasectomy. I like it. Other stuff going on. Other stuff that's going on. You now have a very happy mom. Yes. All right. What up, Dave Cruz? Dave's doing well, last I saw.
It's just suspended for 4 weeks for
All right.
pushing for 5 months.
What are you going to do with the iPhone? I'm going to recover the data. The other one, though, the milk damaged one, since that was an easy recovery, we will stick it in a new housing and give her back a working phone, since that phone doesn't really have anything wrong with it. And she's local, and it's just, it would be a nice little perk for her, and it's easy for us to do, so we'll do that. And that's it for comments. So we've got two data recoveries done this morning, and I am going to get them recovered, and we will see you guys next time.